Welcome, welcome, welcome. Letting folks stream in from all over the world. We're so excited to have you. Give folks a chance to come on in and get their live streams going and join us before we formally kick off here. Welcome to the third annual Global Unity Summit presented by Love Out Loud and In Truth Technologies. I'm Marisa Brassfield, COO of Love Out Loud and a co-host of this year's live stream. We are so excited to reconnect with this global community and to catalyze these important yet polarizing conversations. Before I bring our CEO, Nicole Gibson, onto the virtual stage to formally open our space and kick off the event, I'd like to welcome and acknowledge some of the amazing streaming partners and communities and speakers that you'll meet. First of all, the Unify community, all 2+ million of you. Be sure to stick around for our session with Ramayan Ananda in about 3 hours from now. There's also High Vibe Network tuning in with a special shout out to Faiz Nazarali, who has been such a champion of the Global Unity Summit all these years. And I'd also like to acknowledge Podopolo, a revolutionary podcast discovery app. We're going to hear from founder and CEO Melinda Wittstock on day 2. Also want to acknowledge Viome, Naveen Jain's big mission to impact health and mental health. We'll be seeing him just after this opening session. And then Purium and F5. We're going to meet Marquesa Finch in a little while today and Kelly Kimball on day 2. And of course, so much love and appreciation for the Love Out Loud community, tuning in from over 40 countries and many, many time zones. We're so happy to have you back and get the gang back together. And now, please allow me to introduce Nicole Gibson, the primary provocateur and space holder for the Global Unity Summit. Nick is the founder and CEO of Love Out Loud and In Truth, and founder of the Love Out Loud Foundation. As this generation's messenger of love, Nick is a modern-day philosopher and poet redefining what it means to be an entrepreneur. Combining the intersections of visionary technology, transformative arts, and complex systems thinking, Nick is building a bridge to an entirely new way of living and being for humanity. She's one of Australia's top 100 most influential women, a Pride of Australia medalist, a finalist for Young Australian of the Year, Australia's youngest ever Commonwealth Commissioner for Mental Health, and so much more. It's my pleasure to welcome my colleague, my friend, Nicole Gibson.
What's up, Em? Thank you.
Well, hello, you.
Welcome to the Global Unity Summit, my friends, Wow, the third annual Global Unity Summit. And this year I get to co-host with my incredible Chief of Ops, and the rest of our team, in one way or another, is actually going to be co-hosting this summit with us. And why that is super special is because the team has experienced massive changes in growth over the past year since we did last summit, and definitely over the past 2 years since we did our first ever Global Unity Summit. And I feel like the community have not had enough time interfacing with you guys. And yeah, I'm so grateful for all of the hard work that each of you have put in. All of the collaborators and speakers that you're going to be hearing from over the next few days, they're also calibrated to Love Out Loud's evolution of our vision to actualize a civilization of love by 2030, but really coming at it from a very systematic, pragmatic perspective that hopefully by the end of summit is going to have convinced you beyond measure that this is possible, that together we are not only holding the intent and developing the philosophical framework and conceptual framework for a civilization of love, but we're actually properly building the infrastructure, engineering and architecting what can and will become a new world. So that's why I'm personally excited. And Em, I think it'd be amazing for you just to share, and we're going to actually invite the whole core Love Out Loud and In Truth team on in 20 or so minutes so they can say hi to all of you guys watching on the live stream, just a reminder to click that share button as well. It makes a huge difference to our traction. So that support is so appreciated. So you're going to hear from the team in just a sec, but I'd love, considering your immense background in technology and your very direct line of work, you know, in the Silicon Valley space and community, what is important when it comes to the conversations we're hosting over the next few days as it relates to your experience and your background, specifically in technology?
Yeah, thank you. So for the last 15 years or so, I've been orbiting around visionary entrepreneurs, primarily in exponential technology. A lot of folks who are following on LinkedIn and watching us live there will know and be able to check out who I've worked with and what I've done there. But the bottom line here is we are in a time of disruptive change where exponentially growing and things are changing faster than our brains are wired to adapt and accommodate. And this can feel overwhelming and polarizing in itself. Just the fact that things feel like they're moving faster than they ever have. And there's this need for us as individuals, as change makers, as people who are wanting to create a better world and contribute to the world we want to see, to adapt on the fly and learn and practice skills that we were never probably trained in school or in some of our early work experiences. This is something that we're in an entirely new time with unprecedented challenges, and it takes practice to even adapt and accommodate to change. But then if I think about where we've been over the last few years, boy, so I'm coming in live from Los Angeles, and here it's a very, very polarizing time, and this is where there's more fear and more risk aversion, the unwillingness to take risks, the unwillingness to learn and evolve and even fail forward. There's this need to be perfect and come out of the gate perfect. Mm-hmm. And there are so many reasons why this can limit the things that we try to do. So that's something that I'm really been thinking about, and it's just kind of like bubbling to the surface at this moment.
I think it's such a relevant point, and whether or not you can relate to that on a professional level or maybe just a personal level, how many conversations do you withhold because you feel like you don't have the answers yet? And I think, you know, one of the things that I contemplate a lot about in the modern day is, once upon a time, we had a appreciation and actually a reverence to a more philosophical way of life, which meant that we were willing to be in the question. And actually, we were in acceptance that we may never find a conclusive answer. And as our society in many ways has evolved in ways that are incredible, but we've moved towards this often very scientific lens, which is always putting pressure on the conclusive answer. And what I'd love us to open up to over the next few days is, what if at the end of these 3 days, we don't have a conclusive answer to some of these conversations, but what if it was simply a space of exploration where we could have a conversation that up until this point, maybe you've really wanted to have, but you've been too afraid to have, in the field of economics, technology, health, education, leadership, and what the future of communities look like. All of these tracks we're going to be unlocking the doors to the conversations of. What if it was simply just a space where we could do some thinking out loud and not be on the front foot of defense as we enter conversations that are, in many cases, highly sensitive, and rightly so. And yet, you know, through the pushing of perfection, when it comes to the conclusive answers, I guess we're all wanting to find during these times of radical uncertainty, we're actually not having the conversations at all. And when we don't have conversations at all, we actually separate ourselves from those around us, and we stop being able to hear and listen to the perspectives of others. And when you partner that with a world that is accelerating in its push for echo chambers, surrounding you with content and ideas that you're likely to agree to, because that's what's going to hook your attention. That's what certain platforms know that you like. So that's being fed to you again and again and again. None of us, and this was actually an interview I had with Andy Russell in the first ever Global Unity Summit, when he was explaining to me for the first time ever, before I myself even moved into technology, just how these echo chambers work, and how one of the things he said to me in that interview was, it doesn't matter how aware you are or how conscious you are that this is the way it works. No one is immune to it, because it is designed to hijack the human mind and the human emotional system. And that really hit me, because here I was thinking that although I'm digesting a lot of information and content and I'm utilizing these platforms, I sort of know, what the go is. So there's a level of immunity. This is what I used to believe. But as he actually started to break down how it works, it actually doesn't matter how much conscious awareness you have of the fact that these echo chambers exist. It doesn't create an immunity. So I think it's safe to say that in an age where we're being saturated with so much information, none of us really are immune to the way that information is shaping our perspective. And I think even more relevant, the way that it's shutting us down from hearing a difference of perspective. And how can we find unity if we're not able to actually hear and see each other beyond our differences, and find that place of sameness, find the human spirit? Up until 2020, Love Out Loud's mission and vision was to build the world's largest love-based movement. Sounds like a very bold mission and vision, but funnily enough, I had yet to be exposed to a movement that really was a stand for love. And I remember when I started Love Out Loud, so many people would say to me, are you sure you want to call it love? What about connection? What about well-being? What about this? What about that? And, it was interesting, as I was writing the book Love Out Loud, which is where it all began, and I was hearing this feedback, it kind of awoken me to just how much we need to specifically have conversations with the very direct intention of love, because of how much it brings up for people. And the triggers, and the fact that there's something in us. And I would say, and I say this with so much love and compassion for all of humanity, in one way or another, it's difficult to live in the times that we are living in without some level of impact on our own heart, without some level of heartbreak, without some level of suffering. For some, that might feel on a conscious level greater than others. But what I really know to be true, and what Global Unity Summit has taught me when I host this event, is we are all connected. And the suffering of one human being, even if they're on the other side of the planet, and we feel so estranged from them and we don't feel connected to them, the reality is there's a butterfly effect. We are connected to them. And as a world, we can only really be as strong as our weakest link, just like we see in families, just like we see in teams. And so what is it going to take to extend what I write about in my book, and what Darwin talked a lot about in his work of biology, which is fascinating? What is it going to take to extend what he called these artificial barriers, these barriers that aren't actually real? When it comes to the spirit, when it comes to the truth atomically, of our connection with one another, that 99.9% of what we are is shared with each other on an atomic level. Isn't that profound? On so many levels, we literally are one. Even when you break it down into the granular, he spoke to these artificial barriers, which are constructs that we create, and what I want to invite all of you guys into as you venture into these conversations is these constructs are held together by our beliefs. These constructs are held together by our thought form. These constructs are held together by the way that we feel as we enter our day, and the way that we relate to one another. Because at the end of the day, these artificial barriers of nation states, of sexuality, of race, of gender, these superficial layers, which when held next to the human spirit, really have no weight in terms of separation, have become the dominant narrative for so many. And although it's important that we move into these conversations, we acknowledge, most importantly, the trauma and pain that these biases, that these constructs of hate, of violence, of volatility, of judgment, of segregation, the way that that's broken each of our hearts in one way or another. Although it's important to acknowledge that, I also want to invite you into an understanding through these conversations that I am you and you are me. And the more we understand that, the more we seek to believe in that beyond our differences, the easier it becomes to open our minds, our ears, our hearts to the perspective of another and actually find a middle ground where healing can occur.
I find this so refreshing and energizing. And as you were speaking and sharing, I'm reflecting on, here in the US, we are in between Thanksgiving and the holiday season. Historically, this is a time where many of us see people we haven't seen for a long time for various reasons. And this is frequently a time where we get together and have very charged conversations, at least, in my direct experience and in my friends and social networks. And, it's a time where we might clash heads with, cousin Sam or Uncle, Jane. And I'm really excited to kind of take a step back, enjoy over these next 3 days, these kinds of conversations, and just take a break from the news headlines and what we're supposed to be worried about and afraid of, and actually look at what's going right. What can we do to make this world a better place? How can we design these systems in a way that works for all? So super excited about that. And one of the things, as we get into this, I know we have been sharing that this year's theme is about actualizing a civilization of love by 2030. And Nick, I'd love for you to tell us a little bit more about that mission. Why is this so important? Why 2030?
Where to begin? I mean, what a lot of people ask, and rightly so, when they hear a 2030 vision, is this intentionally a some sort of a competition against the UN SDGs? And I wouldn't necessarily say that, but there is a reality of certain things that, from a sustainability perspective, and just a human, well-being perspective, that we do really need to seek to get right by 2030. That's true. But one of the things that Love Out Loud's work in over 40 countries has been our reach. So it's a huge amount of diversity that we've had the privilege of being able to interface with. And it's really interesting having led a community that is a values-based community that are coming together with a shared love of love, but sometimes not much else. So, their occupation, their social views, status, the country they live in, their religion, all of these things quite often within our community have been very diverse, which I would say is quite rare when you think about what creates the construct of tribe and communities. A lot of the time, people generally hang out with people that are really like them. But what I've seen within Love Out Loud is a lot of people being willing to come together that are very seemingly different because there's this shared belief in love. And that's one of my favorite things about the Love Out Loud community. And if you're an all-time Love Out Louder and you've been with us since the beginning, just a special shout out to you and a thank you. And no, of course we wouldn't be where we are today if it wasn't for you guys and your relentless pursuit of love. But observing that, leading a community like this, when I look at the SDGs, although they're powerful pillars and frameworks in some ways, what I see is missing is the conversation around the vibrational quality of how we seek to actualize a lot of those goals. It's one thing to say, let's achieve this radical goal. It's another thing to really be in alignment and in integrity and in a full embodiment on an individual level, a team level, a regional level, and a national level to those goals. Because one of the things that I think isn't talked about enough, and I hope this comes out in many of the conversations in varying ways, because I know the visionaries that we're going to interview and dive deep with do share this sense that you have to be able to make something real inside yourself before we can actualize it in the world. There's no shortcuts. There's nothing we can change on the outside. There's nothing we can manipulate on the outside. There's no solution we can try and manufacture out here that's going to sustain itself if we're not changed in here. And this is a conversation that I don't hear when it comes to things like the SDGs, and it's a gap in the conversation that I feel a huge responsibility as Love Out Loud to help meet. So when we got to this place where we had this massive reach through 2020, it was quite amazing to see what happened with our community during the first year of the pandemic, and just how many people were willing to come together in the name of love during a time that was otherwise really seen to be quite fear-based, was that's just step one. Step one was to unify people. Step one was to be able to present and articulate this philosophy that ultimately we only ever have two choices. We're only ever choosing love or we're choosing fear. And out of all the tens of thousands of choices we make a day, if we can just start to become present to that understanding, to that philosophy, am I moving towards love? Am I expanding into love? Am I becoming a bigger version of myself which aims to include rather than segregate? To be creative and divergent rather than judgmental and limited? Or am I choosing fear? Am I choosing the path that is making me smaller, that is shutting me off, that is rejecting others around me? That was step one. Step two was to understand that that individual awareness also needs to become the capacity that I'm speaking to, that's often overlooked. The capacity to really maintain that, and then to multiply that through the development of systems at a level that can become critical mass, so that we awaken to the understanding that when there is enough of us choosing from that vibrational landscape, choosing from the truth of the human spirit, which is what Love Out Loud is a stand for, that we can and will inevitably change the world, because all of this outside is a mirror reflection of our own subconscious and unconscious, and then our collective subconscious and unconscious. When that comes into the light, when we take self-responsibility, when we truly become sovereign, and we do that at a scale that is big enough to shift the collective, our world starts to look radically different. And so building systems of love is so much more than just the objective data points and goals. It's guiding people on a journey. And I do believe that community is paramount to that. We're tribal beings. We're not meant to do this in isolation. We're meant to do it in a unified way. So I encourage all of you who are watching the live stream to jump in our WhatsApp group. The team will put the WhatsApp group links there, the Telegram group that we have, share on the live feed, have a conversation with one another, because I almost a guarantee that if you're willing to show up inside a Love Out Loud container, you will make new friends. And there's a beauty to that. That there has to be this collective, unified approach to building this world where each of us are holding each other in the highest version of ourselves and the greatest possibility through love in order to build this new world. And to really use love as the compass so that we're vibrationally in integrity to what that better world looks like. Because what I know to be true very deeply through my journey as an entrepreneur, especially working with communities, is if you bring the same vibration to a proposed solution that created the problem, it just creates more problems. And I think this disconnect has come from the fact that we've forgotten just how powerful we are. We've forgotten that through our alignment and our conviction and our integrity, we can create anything as a species. We really can. But the catch is, are you willing to do what it takes to actually step into alignment with that? Are you willing to do the deep inner work and take total radical self-responsibility so that you are a vibrational match for that earth that you want to see? It's only then are we going to see it truly actualize. And so that is the evolution of the Love Out Loud vision, that we had the first steps of the people, the community, the heart, the philosophy. But now the next 8 years or 10 years from when that vision shifted, that decade is devoted to building the proper infrastructure the proper architecture that will allow the vibration of love to permeate through these new systems in our world.
I am thinking about that Albert Einstein quote, "No problem can be solved from the same level of consciousness that created it." And so I'm reflecting on Web3 and blockchain. Tough year this year in that space. And I wonder if how these technologies and tools will evolve over the next few years as our consciousness raises and as more people enter this space who have that alignment that you're talking about.
Yeah, amen.
Well, Love Out Loud has been incubating some exciting new technologies. So, Nick, I'd love for you to talk about In Truth and the journey that's led up to it and what's coming up next.
Yeah. So I think when you have a focus as a company, and in our case as a movement, on critical mass, it's only a matter of time before that that vision is going to intersect with technology in some way. And definitely one of the conversations that I see happen so much in technology is this idea that artificial intelligence is the supreme intelligence, or is fast becoming the supreme intelligence on the planet. And I think that is such a grave miscalculation of the truth. The truth being that inside your human spirit, through true alignment to divinity, you can perform miracles as a human being. And if we look to machines that can only use prediction and probability, that don't have a sensitivity to these very things that we're talking about, this vibrational landscape that is available to us through our emotional bodies, that we are energy and motion, quite literally. If we totally disregard that as an intelligence, and we look to things that are purely based on machine learning, that are using the past to predict the future, then we miss what it means to be human altogether, which is this ability to be spontaneous, this ability to experience the God within, And I definitely think that narrative that's coming from some of the most intelligent minds on the planet, there's got to be, a company, there's got to be a group of people, there's got to be really a movement of people that are willing to be bold enough to say, actually, no, that the human spirit, the power of the human spirit is, when in alignment, capable of anything. And so it was that understanding that began to drive some of the work that In Truth is doing today. And as we dive deeper into our exploration of technology, it's important to us that you guys know, as our community, that our higher purpose is to really uncover the truth in conversations that I think have become very monopolized. And that the reality is data, and the way data is being mined and shared is the gold of the modern day, is the gold of the future. And so what's being done with that data? What's that data being used for? Who within that conversation is truly a stand for not just freedom of speech, which we hear so much about, because it's beyond freedom of speech. It's about sovereignty, sovereignty of the spirit. Are we creating a world where we are spiritually mature enough to handle the technological advancement? I write in my my next book, due to come out next year, early next year, that one of the biggest risks, I think, that we're faced with as humanity is that our technological advancement will outweigh our spiritual discernment. And that's something that all of us need to become present to and take seriously, because we can care, and we've demonstrated that there's a level of care when we think about, say, the conversation environmentally, that we are borrowing from the next generation, their resources. But let's start to expand our thinking into how else we're doing that. You know, if we're borrowing sovereignty from the next generation because it's convenient to click that button and get things, you know, on demand and exist within these echo chambers, what are we by default subsequently taking from generations to come? That's really what In Truth, from a bird's eye view, is exploring. And those that have been following the journey, you'll see everything that we're up to. So keen to sort of keep you in the loop. And yeah, it's an exciting next 8 years, that's for sure.
Excited to be on the ride, and I'm excited to be on the ride with this amazing team that everyone's about to meet. So everyone turn on your cameras and let's say a quick hello, and then we'll get ready for our first official session. Hey, everybody.
Hello, hello.
Let's fire up gallery view so we can see everyone's beautiful faces at once just for this moment. And Victoria Key, our beautiful, wonderful, intelligent, brilliant event coordinator. Show yourself, introduce yourself, say hello.
Thank you so much, Marissa and Nicole. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in. I am so humbled every time we do this work. And just like it is for, I can say for all of us in this team who are here for a deeper reason. For me, every year, these conversations bring just so much inspiration and joy and hope. Even for someone, it's been a couple of years that I've committed myself to this journey to serve and unify and support humanity on this path at a really global scale. I don't want to take too much time, but I do want to share a little bit about my journey, just really as a summary of where I have come from, being someone who hasn't fit in to basically any kind of box in my own culture as a Chinese Australian, and my parents were atheists. My dad was Buddhist. There were so many different religions, different thoughts flying around. I've also done a lot of personal development, a lot of learning, you know, about belief systems, about psychology, and it's come full circle all the way around after delving into many layers, realizing that I'm coming to the same place, and that all of these gurus and mentors, when deeply they try to communicate in this limited tool that we have, which is language, we still come to the same place of truth and love. And when I discovered Nicole's work, she was speaking the exact language that I was always searching for. Although we'll do our best to communicate what this is in the summit, it's really a process of discovery that we continue, and rediscovery that we continue on together. And it's really such a privilege to be on this journey with you, because for me, after doing so many flashy things, I've come to this is the most important work that I can do. It's also the most interesting, the most magical, the most abundant, and it brings me the ultimate peace. So grateful to be here, and I look forward to seeing everyone's comments, and looking forward to engage with you and get to know you throughout this series, because we're only getting started.
So beautiful. Thank you, Victoria. Adika James, creative director.
Hello. These are so much fun. Yes, I'm a creative director with In Truth and Love Out Loud. I consider myself an impact artist or engagement artist. And one of the things that I fell in love with instantly when I started talking with Nicole a little over a year ago was just how on the same page we were looking at the human experience from so many different angles. Something that I've seen with art, just to kind of back up a little bit, I look at impact art as art that helps people connect more deeply to themselves and each other. And it's anything from sinking a giant ship and putting a sculpture on it to delight and entertain people to fall in love with the ocean, to giant plush brains to help destigmatize mental health. All of my work has often started with creating a pattern interrupt that puts people in a childlike state so that they're not worried about what they look like, what they're doing. They're not trying to be experts. And then we can direct their attention towards a bigger meaning or goal. And what I've consistently found is we are so much more alike than we are different. And when Nicole said that the first time, I was like, oh my gosh, my life's work has continued to prove this theory. And there's so many topics that we've been spinning around over and over, sharing our opinions, sharing our thoughts, but not really interacting with them, and not interacting with them in a way that starts with, we're the same. We're all inside a 7-year-old child on the playground wanting to play together. And I really never know what we're going to do next with this team, from technology to the Global Unity Summit to transitioning this to an ongoing series of interactive panels we're going to do in the coming year. But I can't think of anything more meaningful to be a part of. And it really relates to the entire world, and creating a platform for people to jump on and feel like they're able to be heard and learn what it's like to really listen to hear, especially when you're listening to someone who may be sharing a completely different perspective from the one that you've learned to understand is true. Most of us really believe that what we believe is the right thing. And I think that when we come from that standpoint, it's easy to get really curious about, well, why does this person believe this is the right thing? And when we listen to understand before to be understood, something really magical happens. So I'm super excited to see what comes from these 3 days, and what comes from the coming year as we use this as a teaser, and especially what comes into people's minds that may be different from what you're expecting when you go into any one of these topics.
So good. So good. Thank you, Vedika. Next up, Tyrone, introduce yourself. Live stream operations, logistics.
Hey, so I'm Nick's EA. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. I'm looking forward to connecting with every one of the community here. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to sort of being connected with all of you throughout these 3 days. Thank you.
Amazing. Tommy from Frequency Technologies.
Hey guys, yeah, look, thanks for the invitation to be here as well. Wow, Chinese Australian, Victoria. Well, I guess that makes me a Greek Australian. We're all indigenous earthlings at the end of the day, I guess, right? And having had 28 years in the corporate world, working in IT, had what was called a successful, I guess, career, working for the likes of Amazon and Akamai and Zendesk and all these fantastic companies I was privileged to be part of, and had a health wake-up call at the age of 50. Was a triathlete as well, and that woke me up to, you know, a lot of the things that Nicole talks about and what this the purpose of this team is, especially with connecting the world into a state of love and connection by 2030. Unlike plans that others have for the world 2030. So, you know, bringing it all together, I think, making it all inclusive. And Attica, you mentioned about Nicole talking about how really we are so similar, yet at the same time, and I think this is where the world is at, and there's been so many challenges right now into belief systems, regardless of what the agenda has been from different angles, depending on what you believe. And your belief system, that the world is in a state that it's in right now, having a good look at the fact that we are all different. And, you know, love out loud being about loving above those differences and those beliefs, because they're only beliefs based on your experiences in your head, whereas all our hearts connect. And so this has been a journey for me, and a lot of the things that I do, having come out of the tech industry, loved how tech can be used as a catalyst and a lever for good, not for bad, to be able to make the small guy and gal bigger, not necessarily corporations or any entity, as long as their intent is honorable and for the world and connecting in love. But loving the second chapter of my life to drive from a purpose of accelerating and using technology to be able to bring everybody together the right way, faster. And so it's about not quality of business these days, it's about quality of life. And really, whether it's your work life or your home life or whatever, it's all life, and it all mixes, I think, together. You know, when you look at the workplace, I'm going to be, have the privilege of moderating a panel, which Nicole and others will be part of, around heart-led leadership on day 3, which I'm really looking forward to, because just in the workplace alone, 79% of us are disengaged. I mean, that is phenomenal. Now, that's the bad news. The good news is when you bring the heart and love into business, the game changes, because 70% of that disengagement can be changed through strong heart-led leadership. So looking forward to bringing that in to the equation. And thank you so much for welcoming me to the fam. And looking forward to the next 3 days. Thanks, guys.
Remarkable. Thank you, Tommy. Always bringing the facts and figures. I love it. And then to take us home, Krista Rain, my co-pilot in operational excellence.
Hey, everybody. My gosh. We haven't even started. We've only talked to the team, and it's incredible. So my name is Krista, as Marisa said, and I just recently joined the team. So if you don't recognize my face, that's why. I've been spending my career collaborating with some of the most well-known thought leaders and personal development experts in the industry, and also created my own movement called Wild and Wise Women that was really focused on community and global giving, living, learning, sharing. And so I just wanted to share quickly that a couple of decades ago, which gives a little bit away, I had the opportunity to really crystallize my life's purpose and to really clarify it and articulate it as to inspire a collective heartbeat. And it's a purpose that guides my every day, my every breath. And what it means to me is universally, but also just around my dining room table. And knowing, as Nick was talking earlier about that butterfly effect, how that can really change the world, really, meal by meal, conversation by conversation. And so it's no real surprise that the universe brought me to Nick, to Love Out Loud, whose mission is to actualize the civilization of love by 2030, to this summit, which is all about unity and topics that you just aren't going to find anywhere else, and that make my heart sing. And so all I can say is that it's very clear to me that I'm in exactly the right place. And I want to say to all of you, to the team, to the speakers, to the collaborators, to people in the front, to people in the back, and everyone in between, and to every single viewer, whether it's this right now, sessions tomorrow, sessions later, wherever, whenever you show up, you're in exactly the right place too. And so reach out to us, because we're here for you. It's the whole reason we're here is for you. So reach out to us in the comments. Let us know how we can support you. And well, let's do this thing.
Hey, I know that the event has begun because I'm already in tears. Thank you. Thank you, Krista. Thank you, team. I know that we all have our duties and roles. So thank you so much for joining us, and for each of you, your shares. It's just been such a privilege to work with this group. And I, for those listening and watching, may we all be blessed with such a group who challenges us to be better every single day, holds us exactly where we are, and loves us as we work through all of life's challenges, all of our old beliefs, our old stories that are no longer helpful. I know I've certainly done a lot of that work here already. So thank you all. And Nick, as we transition and we start getting ready for our very first session of the summit, I'd love for you to kind of take us through these 3 days and starting with today, and what are we going to start thinking through when it comes to actualizing a civilization of love?
Great question. And also, team, like what beautiful introduction. So thank you. And I'm so stoked the community are finally getting to hear from you all, and we're going to make this more regular. Obviously, we have been doing so much in the back end, and I know sometimes when you do a lot of thinking in the back end, it doesn't show on the front end. It seems like maybe, you know, there's a bit of abandonment there, or whatever that might be, and just know that that's not the case. The last 12 months in our world has called us into even deeper contemplation, even deeper consideration of how we can actually best serve you. And so all of that's been done with care, all of that's been done with love, and now it's time to start sharing it, which is so great. So what to expect? I mean, first of all, some of the speakers that we have joining us over the next 3 days, the fact that they have generously donated their time, given their time to this cause, means so much. These are the sorts of speakers that traditionally you would see, you know, at some crazy awesome conference, definitely not on a live stream, you know, for free, available to all. So I'm just going to say it again, and I'm going to say it a few times throughout the few days. When we ask you to click share, it's so that the people in your ecosystem that may not know about us, that may not know these conversations are happening, get the opportunity to have that exposure, that opportunity to digest information and engage with information that otherwise they you know, that they would have to go and pay for, or, you know, they just don't even know it exists. So through our shared impact, that's really such a big part of how we change the world together. So it takes you 2 seconds, click the share on whichever stream that you're watching. If you're on Facebook, share it into any relevant groups that you feel. But the 3 days that we have in store are compartmentalized into the stages of thinking, as it relates to building the civilization of love. So today we're focusing on the belief infrastructure. We're focusing on the conceptualization and the philosophy required in our thinking, in our mindset, in order for the civilization of love to be actualized. So we're kicking off in just a second with Naveen Jain, who I'm going to introduce. I'm so excited, is coming back after he joined us in the first ever Global Unity Summit. And his talk's going to be on audacious belief. So I couldn't imagine there being anything more fitting as our first official keynote, or it's not really a keynote, a fireside chat interview with Naveen. As we move into day 2, we're moving more into the space of design thinking. So what are the design components required to, again, build the civilization of love? And then day 3, we move into the architecting and engineering. So how do we really make that real? And the reason we're doing it in these 3 stages is so that by the end of day 3, you guys are like, wow, you know, not only can I understand conceptually how this could work, I've actually been brought into conversations which are making this real. And that's a big stand that Love Out Loud has made over the past 2 years of our journey as a movement, as an organization. We didn't want to be just another company that's talking about it. We really wanted to figure out how to make it real. And so a part of that is engaging, you know, the thought leaders that have given so much thought to this. You know, recently I saw Esther Perel. I love her. When she was touring Australia, and I brought Tyrone with me, and she didn't say it this time, but the first time I ever saw Esther speak, which was a few years ago now, she said something that really stuck with me. And that was, there's no such thing as an expert. There's just people that have given substantially more thought to a single idea than others. And I loved that because it put that into a frame that, you know, airtime with a certain way of thinking creates this level of expertise. It creates this level of mastery. So part of the way we're framing these conversations is to start to expose you to the relevant airtime so that you in your own world can show up in mastery when it comes to bringing forth the new earth. And I would say, hopefully every single Love Out Louder in one way or another has a vision for a far more altruistic, more compassionate, more loving, more forgiving, more generous world, and wants to stand for that in the way that only you can. So yeah, buckle up. it's going to be great.
Casually life-changing, you know?
Yeah. Casually life-changing. You'll accidentally transform. That's our guarantee.
Whoops, sorry, not sorry.
So how are we going? I think we're almost at the time where we can introduce Naveen. So with that, I'd like to say thank you, Krista, Adika, Marissa, and the rest of the team that have joined us and who didn't join us as well. Thank you. They're here for you. Please jump in when you jump in one of our chats, or you'll see them interacting with you on the live stream. Get to know them. I'm nominating you guys for that, so hopefully that's okay. And yeah, to be continued.